Welcome, friends, to another episode of The Critics. My name is Tony Gonzalez, and today we're talking about one of my favorite movies of all time. Jurassic Park, this 1993 Steven Spielberg classic. This movie is what dreams are made of. Growing up, this was the movie that gave me my very first nightmare. I remember it vividly. I watched this movie at night the very first time. Wasn't in theater. I waited till I was a little bit older. Well, I waited. My parents waited to show it to me. So I was a little older. A couple years later, maybe 1995 was the first time I saw this movie, and I was petrified all night long after this movie. But that's how good it is, that this movie literally scared me for so long, but yet now is one of my favorite movies of all time. And everybody knows this. This is going to be somewhat of a spoiler-filled review, kind of. But realistically, if you've never seen this movie, I don't care what your plans are. You need to stop whatever you're doing and go watch it right now, because it's one of the best movies of all time. I go back and forth on whether I feel bad for like my parents who didn't get to experience this kind of movie as a child, or if I am envious of them because I didn't get to experience it for the first time as an adult and see just how wonderful it was as an adult. I went and watched this movie earlier today, and it still holds up in every capacity. It's just such a good movie. Like, it's unbelievable how good this movie really is. So I want to talk about a couple things with this movie. First off, it is such a good movie. Obviously, I've said it numerous times. Everyone and their mother talks about how wonderful this movie is. Everyone loves this movie. I can't honestly think of one person who has anything negative to say about this movie. But the movie opens up with this really high tension scene. And because you just don't know what's going on, you don't know what to expect. The first time you watch this movie, you didn't know what to expect. I mean, we had seen things with animals and high-octane Jaws, things like that, that got us going prior to this movie. But looking at it now, this is a completely different standpoint, because these are dinosaurs. And these are dinosaurs done right. Done right. Not like Dinosaurs, the TV show. Not the mama, not the mama. I love in this movie how when you see that first tension scene of wondering what's happening in the bushes, you just have all these guys with their Jurassic Park helmets, and they're just staring at this wall of trees, and you just see the ruffling, and you don't know what to expect. Some guys have some guns, so you don't know what they're waiting on. You're just ready for it. And it is just, it takes off right from there, because it's such a high adrenaline scene. Once they finally come through, you see that they're putting the dinosaur, or what you don't know what to be a dinosaur at the time, into this thing, and then you just see the flash of the raptor run out, and then the guy dies, and then they're trying to hold on, and then it's just all this high adrenaline from the word go, and it takes it all from there. And that was always really enticing to me, because it grabs you from the moment you start in. A lot of movies nowadays, especially nowadays, they don't always grab you from the beginning. It takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes to get into a movie before it really grabs you. This is the first opening act. It's the opening act of this movie, and it just grabs you. And I really enjoyed that. I really like the actors in this movie. I like Sam Neill. I like Laura Dern. I think both of them are just great actors. And in this movie, they just play the parts of, you can't even tell it's a movie of how well they are portrayed. Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum, and I love him in this movie. I'm not really the biggest fan of Jeff Goldblum as a whole, but in this movie, I just love the way that he portrays everything. I really do. So, moving on as you go through this movie, there's just different things that I see. I like how the fact at the very beginning, it wants to traumatize children. I mean, that's exactly what Sam Neill does in his very opening act, talking to the little kid, is he traumatizes a child. And that's what this movie does for children. The very first time a child watches it, they're traumatized. They don't know what to do. They're first like, oh yeah, look, dinosaurs, awesome, cool. And then they start eating everyone, and it's just like, oh no. Obviously, there's certain things about this movie that are absolutely iconic. The music. You hear that opening song, that just, it grabs you, and you know you're about to watch an iconic movie when you hear that opening score of that movie. Just fantastic. Love it to death. The visuals. It gets touched on anytime anyone talks about this movie, but the fact that they use animatronics and some CGI, obviously not a lot, but they use some, but they blended it together, you can't help but love that. I will say, watching it again, the first opening scene where Sam Neill's character and Laura Dern's character and Jeff Goldblum's character for the very first time sees that Brontosaurus, I think it's called. I could be wrong on that. Anyway, when they first see that, you can tell that CGI. The CGI doesn't hold up as well as you would hope, but it was also 1993, and for 1993, it was miles ahead of its time. But it's just really in that scene. The rest of the movie, the way that they portray it, it's really, the parts that are CGI, you can't really tell. But just that one scene, it's a little cartoonish, but it's a movie. It's going to have imperfections. I've always wondered, too, watching this movie, did this movie put Jeep on the map, essentially? Because of my age, I don't really know or remember when Jeep came about. I could Google it, but I'm just way too lazy for that. But I remember it not really being a thing until this movie. And then after this movie, everyone wanted a Jeep, especially the Cherokee. So the two-door with the soft top breakaway. Like, that was huge after this movie. So I always think, man, Jeep really owes Jurassic Park. Just really owes them. Because if they were still around prior to this movie, they didn't get big until this movie. Also, I always forget, Samuel Jackson is in this movie. And I had to look it up, but this is one of his first, like, big movies. He had done other things before, and you might have seen him in other things before, but this was before Pulp Fiction, this was before Die Hard with a Vengeance, this was before all these other movies that he's synonymous for. Like, this is one of his earlier films, and he's good in it. It's, you know, now Samuel L. Jackson is just known as, you know, that black guy in that movie? Yeah, it's Samuel L. Jackson. No matter what the movie is. Like, this was the first time anybody said that. But he's really, really good in this movie. He's just got his cigarette always hanging out of his mouth, and he's talking, and he's trying to just be this, I can't even think of what it is, but he's good in it, and he entertains me. And then you see, like, his arm, and that's creepy, but it's at the same time just great. I love it. I just love this movie. Love this movie. Every time I see Wayne Knight in this movie, who, if you don't know, Wayne Knight plays Newman, who also plays, I don't know his name in this movie, but he's the fat guy, and Newman from Seinfeld, and he's the one that portrays everyone and gets killed by all the little tiny dinosaurs. He is just, his face is funny. It's a shame that he's not fat anymore, because he's funniest when he's fat. He's, like, lost a lot of weight and looks better in real life now, but this movie also did something that's really good that the predecessors haven't been able to fix yet. Not even with Jurassic World, which, by the way, is also an amazing movie. But this movie did a good job of the kids being in this movie. First, they have a legitimate purpose. And secondly, they are not overly annoying. I feel like in every other Jurassic Park movie that comes after this one, the kids are just there to have kids part of it, and they're all frustratingly annoying. Everything they do, they just bother me. This movie, the kids, they're annoying at times, because kids are annoying, but they grow. They grow as their characters, and they're very entertaining. I like both of the actors. They do a really good job, and they are just they were handled very well. Spielberg did a very good job directing this movie and making these kids feel like real parts of this movie and not just shoo-ins just to have children to kind of appeal to all age groups. They did a really good job with that. I really appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about the action in this movie. There are so many scenes that are absolutely iconic action movies. When they are driving away from the T-Rex chasing the Jeep, and you have Jeff Goldblum in the back just staring at it, watching as it's running after them. Absolutely an iconic scene. Even today, watching it again, has you on the edge of your seat because it's just so... It's intense. It's absolutely intense, and it's wonderful just seeing that. It's great. You know, the other scene that's also very intimidating, and again, going back to the animatronics over CGI, is when the kids are in the flipped over Jeep, and the T-Rex's mouth is coming through the glass, and they're holding the plexiglass up, trying to keep this thing from eating them. Granted, I've always thought to myself, why wouldn't that just shatter? And how could these little kids be able to hold that up? But again, we're not going to nitpick too bad on this movie because it's so good. But it's just great. It's absolutely great. Just the intensity of this. You know, the rattle. Everyone always does like the cup on the table and you just hear the rattle from the steps of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I defy you to hate this movie. I don't think anyone can do it. I don't care what your age group is. I don't care if you like science fiction movies or not. I defy you to hate this movie. Overall, this is just such a fantastic movie, and I just got to give it so much praise. And I wish the sequels would have been a lot better. They're finally starting to do better with the Jurassic World. There was just a trailer a few days ago for Jurassic World. I think it's called Fallen Kingdom. It's the sequel to it that's coming out later on this year, 2018. We'll see what that does. But I just hope that they continue with the trend that Jurassic World did do, because that was overall a really great movie as well. But nothing really goes with Jurassic Park. It is one of the most iconic movies, and honestly, it is one of my favorite movies of all time. And of course, I'm going to have to give it an A+ because it is just perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Feel free to like, share, subscribe. There should be like a button somewhere to hit subscribe, or you can watch one of my other videos that are on here. If you like it, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you soon.